Okay, and welcome into another Duly Noted podcast. This is a Monday edition. I am not there, and as a result, I'm dealing with some family problems, crisis. It's really sad, but I don't want to get into it. It's really hard to hold it together. But I am in St. Augustine. I will be back, hopefully for Friday's show. But Another Duly Noted podcast sponsored by Titan MRI and ABC Fine Wine and Spirits. What we're going to do today is bring you a best of show, some of the best interviews we've done during the 4 months that we've been on the air. Obviously, with what I'm dealing with, I did want to talk about a few things that are going on that happened over the weekend. What an unbelievable weekend for sports to watch. And certainly that basketball game was just incredible. And I could be saying, that basketball game was incredible. And you could say, well, which one? They were all incredible, all except for the Baylor-Arizona one, or not Baylor, Baylor-Houston one. I'm starting to get my men's and women's teams mixed up. But certainly that men's game, and I wrote about this a little bit in my back nine on WRUF, and you can read that up there a little bit later today. All right, actually, it's up there now. Yeah, I don't ever want to overreact when you see a great game and say, that's the greatest game of all time. My feeling has always been, I'll let you know in a week, whether it's, or maybe 2 weeks, or maybe next year, whether it was the greatest of all time. It feels like it was the greatest game of all time, especially the way it ended and the way nobody could miss a shot there, it seemed like, for a while. I mean, UCLA, like somebody said on the radio that UCLA gave Baylor a blueprint on how to beat Gonzaga. And my thing was, don't miss. If you don't miss any shots, you're probably going to beat them or at least get them into overtime. Those were two great offensive teams, and it was so much fun to watch. It took my mind off of a lot of things Saturday night. So tonight we have the championship game. Baylor Gonzaga is the game we all wanted. We wanted it in December when they were supposed to play and got COVIDed out. I am kind of excited about watching the game, but I'm really upset with myself because I kept telling people that I pretty much knew what was going to happen with this basketball tournament, that we were going to see tons of upsets early, and that in the end, the chalk would rise and you would end up you would either have Baylor Gonzaga or Gonzaga Michigan or Baylor Michigan. One of those scenarios. And of course, we have Gonzaga and Baylor. And then I made my picks. I filled out my bracket, and I had Arkansas and Alabama in the final. So you dummy, that's just stupid on my part. I mean, I called it for what I thought it would be and then picked against it. I think I saw on the bracket challenge at ESPN that I am 6 millionth and something. I don't think that's going to win you a lot of money. So we had that going on, obviously, and looking forward to a national championship game. Virginia has how many more hours until they are no longer national champs? The longest reign, other than teams that won back-to-back like Florida. We talked about that the other day, about how Florida kind of gets dissed in all this equation. Of course, the great UCLA teams, but, at least they had got to hold it for 2 years and say, we're the champions. You can't say we're not. We're the last champions. But that ends today. So we had that going on. We had so much else going on in the world of sports. Big series win for Florida baseball. The SEC is kind of different than what we thought. I didn't even realize how bad LSU has been until I saw it last night, that they're 1-8 now in the conference. And of course, Tennessee kind of coming out of nowhere to be really good at 7-2. Florida's at 5-4. Winning the division is not the goal. It is a goal, but it's not the goal. It's getting to Omaha. And then when you get to Omaha, anything can happen. It's kind of like being in the NCAA basketball tournament. You want to get to the tournament every year. You want to get there with a good seed. And if you get there with a good seed, maybe you have the right team. Maybe you don't. Sometimes you think you have the right team. I'm sure Illinois thought they had the right team. And now they've added Omar Payne, so maybe they'll have the right team next year, although that's kind of an odd deal there. But, I mean, if you've ever been to Champaign, my friend Gary Shelton once said, Champaign is what they named it because that's what everybody wanted to drink when they left it. He said it better than I do because he was a much better writer than I am. So we had that. We had the Gators winning that. Softball, of course, went 17-1 yesterday. The night before I watched the game and they lose, and I'm like, no, man. Then they win 17-1, and they got another game tonight. That'll be interesting as well. Certainly great to see that Becky Burley was able to go out with a win. I think we may have her on the show Friday, if not Friday, maybe Monday or Friday of next week to talk about her retirement. And she's such a great person. I love her to death. And, of course, volleyball getting an 8th seed for the national tournament, another big story. And gymnastics qualifying for the finals. All this stuff is going on. I would love to have been able to talk about it today, but I kind of have somewhere I have to go. I want to come home. I'm ready to come home, but it's not going to be for a little while. What was the other thing I wanted to mention? We do need to do the Leonardo's Quick Picks, starting our brand new contest. Drew Barry was the winner last week for the last segment. And I'm just going to make it simple. I don't want to make things complicated. Who wins tonight? And all you got to do is email patrickdooley54@gmail.com. Who wins the game tonight? I'm not going to put it up on Twitter. I may at some point if I have time, but I got a lot of stuff going on. But just send me who you think's going to win, and that'll be the first chance to I would think somebody is going to qualify because not everybody's going to pick the same team. And to be honest with you, I don't know who's going to win. I would never pick against Gonzaga, a team that's about to has a chance to go undefeated. It's going to be a historical moment if they do. Pretty incredible. I'm sure Indiana fans are rooting against it. But it'll be kind of exciting to see what happens there. So the Leonardo's at Millhopper Quick Picks contest that is a very simple one. Who wins the national championship game tonight? Also wanted to give out our Adams Ribco Gators of the weekend, and I'm giving it to the men's tennis team that won the SEC championship by beating Kentucky, still undefeated in SEC play. Brian Shelton, is his second one SEC championship. Florida has won 10 on the men's side, and Florida has a 25-game home winning streak. So that's pretty impressive in the SEC. And also what happened when they won, that was number 250 for Florida in terms of SEC championships. Think about that number. That's a lot of number. I mean, if you go look at the list, and it's not hard to find on Twitter, of all the championships that have been won, and there's teams with 20 and 30 and 40. Alabama's got 83. 30 of them are in football. They probably count 2 or 3 more. It's pretty impressive. It's pretty impressive. It is the all-everything school, the University of Florida. All right. So a lot going on, a lot happening. Looking forward to getting back. It's been a rough couple of days. My dad's about to die, and that's never easy. All right. What we're going to do is we're going to play a best of here on the show. And so we'll start out with this fun interview that we did. We got Max Starks on. I surprised him with Shannon Snell, and that is coming up here on Another Dooley Noted Podcast. Thanks so much to our title sponsors, ABC Fine Wine and Spirits and Titan MRI, and to our pick sponsor, Leonardo's of Millhopper. You can find us live on Facebook and YouTube, or listen at your leisure on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts, or wherever you find all your favorite podcasts. I'm excited to continue this podcast and to have your company on board as a sponsor. If you're interested in being part of the show, email me at patrickdooley54@gmail.com or give me a call, 352-317-3444. This is Pat Dooley, and I want to tell you about my friends at the Gainesville Quarterback Club. I'm a member, and you should be too. It's the oldest Gator booster club in the world and a great place to meet new friends, network with prominent business people, and hear a great collection of speakers, including Dan Mullen, throughout the football season. Go ahead and give John Stevens a call at 352-222-8516 or sign up on the website, quarterbackclub.org. You can get your favorite alcoholic brands from ABC Fine Wine and Spirits delivered right to your door. ABC Delivers is available in Tampa, Orlando, Jacksonville, and all of the Southeast Florida. Earn ABC points for coupons and free bottles through abcdelivers.com. It's powered by FedEx Same Day City, and you're going to love the price. Free with a $50 purchase for the first 7 miles. So wine, spirits, beer, and everything you need to celebrate. Get it delivered. Shop abcdelivers.com.
Titan MRI, North Central Florida's premier independent diagnostic testing MRI facility. At Titan MRI, we're focused on you, the patient, having a great customer experience. Our MRI equipment is modern and 75% quieter than any unit in its class. And our MRI unit has one of the largest openings of any of the newer high-strength MRI units, which allows comfortable scanning for potential claustrophobic and larger patients. At Titan MRI, we look forward to serving you.
All right, welcome back to another Dooley Noted Podcast, and it's a great pleasure to get to our next guest. Don't forget, by the way, we still have a couple of sponsorship opportunities available if you want to get involved. The numbers are going through the roof, so we'd love to get more people involved in the advertising of this as well. And Max Starks is endorsing Another Dooley Noted Podcast, aren't you, Max?
Oh, yeah. Yep. Starks Inc.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't think about how you and Tony Starks have the same last name.
Yeah, Iron Man is my cousin, and he just didn't leave any of his tech when he left us behind. So I'm just still looking for it, hoping the will get read eventually.
Of course, Max was a great player at Florida and 10 years in the NFL. And now you've kind of delved into a little bit of broadcasting, doing a heck of a job. What I've heard of it, what's been that been like for you?
It's been great. It's been a transition. I mean, when I started, of course, when you go to a school like the University of Florida, you're put in the public eye, early on, especially the Spurrier years. It's been one of those that you're used to speaking to the public. You're used to speaking to media. And because I had a teaching background, I want to teach people, it just made for a natural fit. So what I started at Florida transitioned to when I went to Pittsburgh, and then I had a show in Pittsburgh for a number of years. I hosted our Steelers TV show a couple of times. And so it really got my mind going as far as what could be in the broadcasting world. I mean, I love football. I love being around the game. And from there, it's really spawned me to have the opportunity to work for SiriusXM, to work for Stadium Network, and then a handful of the others. I've done work for NFL Network and ESPN. And I enjoy it. I enjoy the conversation. I enjoy the debate aspects of it. And I think that lends itself to things that I learned and picked up along the way. I did speech and debate in high school, and then I sat in student government in various capacities while I was attending Florida. And so all those things kind of mixing together for me kind of made for a great opportunity at the next level once I decided to retire.
Yeah, it was an interesting story. I told it on your show that the first time I interviewed you, you said that you went to Florida State and visited, but the classrooms were better at Florida, and that's why you wanted to come to Florida. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. Nobody ever talks about the classroom size.
Yeah.
You're dedicated to both professions, really.
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest things is, like, for me, because when I even came to Florida, right, it wasn't on an official visit. I came down there unofficially. I picked, I think, a Tuesday. My mom took me out of school. We drove down that day and just arranged with the athletic department, arranged with the OSL, Office of Student Life, to meet with the deans and to meet with what my potential guidance counselors would be, just to have those conversations. And then they took me on a tour of the school, and we kind of looked at various areas that I was interested in. And I was actually really, really impressed. And so that was one of the things that when I went to Florida State, I did that visit. I mean, it was all about Bobby Bowden and the football facilities. then when I asked to see the classrooms, they showed me a classroom. I was like, this is what you're wanting. And at the time I wanted to be pre-med. Sorry about that. And what was funny was they're like, oh yeah, if you do the pre-med path, you would do 2 years here. And then your other 2 years would be with Shands at UF. We have a partnership because they don't have a medical school, right? At the time. And so I was like, so I'd have to go to Florida regardless if I wanted to go pre-med path. They're like, yeah. I was like, okay, noted. Made my decision a lot easier when it came to that. And, and I really enjoyed my unofficial visit because it wasn't all the pomp and circumstance. It was just getting down to what mattered most to me, right? I wanted to see the sports facility because obviously if I'm coming on an athletic scholarship, but what is my quality of life? What is my educational process going to be beyond that? And it was a very easy one. I mean, it came down really to Florida, Notre Dame, USC, and Michigan. And then I went on an official to Florida State and Georgia, but they weren't as high up on my list.
What was it like, though, to play for Coach Spurrier, who, well, we've all got a million stories about him, but I mean, it must have been kind of fun in a way, but also he could be tough on you as well.
Yeah, no, it was the tough love aspect. I mean, that's what drew me to it. And then Coach Spurrier, as we know, is so polarizing, right? You either love him or you hate him. You never really end up in the middle with Coach Spurrier. And I loved him for that because he was unabashedly himself. He gave you his raw emotion, but he also gave you honesty and accountability. And one of the best stories I can give was I'll never forget Coach Collins, who was recruiting me, the linebackers coach, Jamie Collins. Coach Collins comes to my basketball practice in the winter, and and he brings Coach Spurrier with him, and they're sitting in the gym. All my friends and my teammates are all going crazy. Even my head basketball coach is like losing his mind that Coach Spurrier is in our tiny little gym and he's watching us practice for the winter tournament. And he's sitting up there on the top of the rafters in the back in the center court. And we're going through practice. And I'll never forget my buddies just razzing me the whole time. And so we had this thing at the end of practice, obviously, running suicides. You had to shoot free throws for it. And so I hit my first 2 free throws. And then at the end, they always pick one person to shoot a 3 that can wipe out whatever everybody else has missed. So they picked me to shoot a free throw from the 3-point line. And so I'm sitting there, I'm concentrating. I'm like, okay, just got to put a little bit more on it. Okay. And then now by this time, Coach Spurrier's now got in my head, right? I'm like, dude, Coach Spurrier's watching me. If I miss this, I'm going to be just, dejected. And so I get up, I go and I shoot the shot, and it hits the back of the rim, the front of the rim, and then falls off the side. And I'm like, oh, God. So now we have to run like 6 suicides. Then after practice, my basketball coach comes and said, hey, Coach Spurrier's down in the AD's office. Can you go down there and meet with him? I'm like, yeah, okay, yeah, sure. I mean, that's why he came, right? And so I walk in there. Coach Spurrier's sitting in the AD's chair. We're in his office. And the first thing he says to me, he goes, Maxie, son, your future's in the 3-point stance, not behind the 3-point line. Come to Florida. And that was it. You're just like, oh, God. And so I followed suit, apparently. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, we want you to feel, because you're so far out there in Arizona, we want you to feel at home. So we brought on a special guest here, your teammate, Shannon Snell, joining us now, and he may or may not cook us up something from the pitmaster.
I probably should, because I know they don't know how to cook out there in Arizona. So
listen, Shannon, we are a barbecue desert out here. Okay. I would really appreciate you going in and send me some of those relationship ribs out this way. You figure out to package them.
You got to come back to Florida. I don't know if they travel very well.
Exactly. No, man, it's been long overdue. And, it's so great. I mean, you're right, Pat. This was my best friend in college. We came in together. We had some adventures together. I mean, you know, the nickname Boofy always comes up when I think of Shannon. And the word has no definition, but we came up with it one day, and it's just always stuck in my mind. So this is awesome to have Shannon on here. I think this is probably the first time we've seen each other on video for how long, Shannon? It's been forever.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah. You know, I talked to you in Troop a couple of years ago, but we didn't see each other on video. I see you on TV, but you don't see me. So,
yeah.
That's
true.
Yeah, no, it was fun. It was funny, Pat. Like I was thinking back, and you know, just watching the game last night. God bless their souls. It was awful. But the last time, the only time that we won an SEC title was in Max and our freshman year. And you know, we thought we would have more titles, but that was the one season that Max and I roomed together on the road. It was like we were the two freshmen. There was only a couple more freshmen, Gus Scott and maybe Ian Scott, that were playing. And Max and I roomed together on the road, and it was the very first time that I didn't like Max because Max snored like a big old bear, and he knows what I'm talking about. We almost got into a fight. I remember we were at the Sugar Bowl. We almost got into a fight because I was trying to wake Max up and trying to bring him, say, hey, we need to go to meetings, and Max was like, oh, don't worry, I got 5 more minutes. So me and Max almost fought at the Sugar Bowl in the hotel room because I was trying to get him to meeting so we didn't get into trouble.
Well, I mean, to have you two guys playing on that offensive line, yeah, you're right. Should have won more championships, but as we know, that 0-1 game was the most amazing. I mean, Rex lost a Heisman, kind of the way Kyle Trask probably lost a Heisman against LSU. But that 0-1 team was unbelievable. That was a great team.
Yeah, it was. It was, you know, we think back to it and, you know, everybody says, you know, had we played Tennessee at the beginning of the season, we would have been in the championship game. And I think some of us were kind of looking forward to the Miami game because Miami was so good that season. And, you know, honestly, we were probably the only team that year that could have stacked up to them talent for talent. But yeah, it sucked. I mean, I think that team's going to go down in probably history. And Max would probably agree with this, is that team's going to go down in history as probably one of the top 5 Gator teams ever, just because of the talent and where we should have been. Obviously, we just couldn't pull it out, and that kind of sucked.
Yeah, no. And one of the things was we were so good at all levels that year. I mean, that was one of the things that made it so special. I mean, Rex was playing out of his mind that year, and, you know, he was up for the Heisman, and our offense was just clicking on all cylinders. And I just remember, you know, that Florida State game. This is why I'm going to say it. I hate Darnell Dockett to this day because of that. I mean, let's just not even try and front. I mean, even playing against Darnell all those years later in the NFL, I've hated Darnell Dockett because of that, because of what happened to Ernest Graham's knee in that Florida State game. It's still burns in my mind what he did, how he sabotaged us, because that's what led us going into that Tennessee game to question how we were going to attack when we didn't have a balanced team. You know, we had Rand, and yes, we had people who could have filled in at the running back position, but it wasn't EG, right? EG was our lead dog. He was our lead horse. And then when we get into those situations, and Shannon remembers this, where Tennessee installed their walk-around Baltimore defense.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, man.
And you have John Henderson lining up 5 yards off the line of scrimmage and running ahead as soon as Rex says set. And we didn't have like a hard count or anything. And he was just blowing the center off the ball and attacking the A-gaps. And then you got Will Overstreet over there as well. I mean, they just had everybody, and we just had no answer, but we kept fighting against them. And then it came down to that 2-point conversion. And that was c'est la vie after that.
And Pat, you know, John Henderson, everybody's like, well, if you don't know who he is, he's like 6'7", 305 pounds. He's a big old dude. And to see him walking back and forth between linemen, that's just not something normal. We never saw that before.
Never saw it. Even watching football, we never saw that at the pro level until we saw a Baltimore game, because we were regional. So we got Miami and Tampa Bay games, but we never saw that. And it was ridiculous at the time.
Yeah, Rex got hit a lot that night. And it was not due to the fact that we were dominated. It was just due to the fact that we hadn't seen, like, John Chavis. He put in a really good game plan to try to confuse us. And, you know, I was in the middle of that line. So I was a sophomore, technically, you know, my first full season starting. So I was confused. And, you know, it was just a tough game, but a good game plan by them, and they were able to pull it out. So that kind of sucked that year. But, you know, we were able to go on to beat Maryland, and it was a nice victory in the Orange Bowl.
Beat the brakes off Maryland.
Beat the hell out of them. It was ugly. It was ugly.
Yeah.
It is amazing, though, that both of you guys now have gone into broadcasting. You know, Shannon's doing a heck of a job here on TV4 doing the games, and he and I have done a couple of shows together as well. And of course, you're all over the place, Max. Does this come from being in the same room sometimes and talking each other's ears off? Is that why you've gone into broadcasting?
I don't know. You know, at some point, you know, we joke about it, but we thought Max was going to be the mayor of Orlando. So for him to go into broadcasting and do that, that's kind of a little bit different, but it's not surprising. Max is really well spoken. His thoughts are really well, you know, thought out. So at some point in time, we knew between one or the other. I thought it was going to be on radio more so than TV. But yeah, I knew Max was going to go on and do something in the broadcasting on TV or something like that. It was kind of pleasant to see, because I get the Conference USA games and some of the games out there out west that he broadcasts, and it's really just fun to see how he's kind of progressed. And I know he's went through the ESPN car wash, so it's good to see him on there sometimes. So it is fun to watch.
Yeah, no, I mean, Shannon and I had some legendary debates in our dorm room days. We had some legendary moments. And I think, you know, when you have that type of love for sport, you have a love for the game itself. It lends itself to having those type of thoughtful and thought-invoking conversations. That's what leads to kind of, hey, you know what? I feel like I need to share my thoughts. And we always had an open forum with each other that we could share our thoughts. And when you have that type of forum, it continues to grow the process. So it's no surprise. I mean, Shannon's so personable, so affable. You can't help but love him, Grimace. But
at least I know how to shave.
Yeah, that is true. Little wolf man out here. But I think that kind of is what breeds it. And when you can gather your thoughts and present them in an interesting way, which we learned while we were in college, I think also lends itself to people wanting to hear it. And I think when you have the different platforms that we had, right? University of Florida is always our springboard. It gave us the opportunity to A, be noticed on a national scale and have that visibility, but then B, our success on the field during our time there lends it to people wanting to ask our opinions. And after a while, you're like, I could do this, right? It gives you that confidence to go out there and speak your mind and see where the chips may fall. And that's one thing, you know, about both of us. We're never hesitant about taking criticism, right? I mean, I'll never forget our first game, Shannon. You remember the Ball State game?
My gosh. You remember that meeting where Coach Spurrier had stopped the film? Listen, Pat, I wasn't one of those guys when I came out of high school. Max is the same way. We were always used to being successful, and you know, our coaches never came at us, and especially the way Coach Spurrier used to go at even some of his top players. And you know, I remember the first game we played Ball State, right? And there was a guy, you know, it was Ball State. Ball State wasn't supposed to have great players. I went into the game kind of confident that we were going to just kind of run over them, and they had this guy that was real, this defensive tackle that was amazing. And, you know, and whenever you're in film room, you always want coach to fast forward past the plays that you didn't do so well on. You were hoping like the film didn't catch it. And there was this one play in question where The Ball State player, he hit me with a spin move, and I think he hit Jesse. Like, he hit him hard too. So in the film room, I'm getting down to that play. I'm like starting to sweat. I'm physically starting to be like, oh God, I hope he gets past this play. And of course he doesn't. Coach Spurrier stops the film. Like after the play, he stops the film, cuts on the lights, and looks at me and says just like this. He's like, Shannon, do you think that guy from Ball State cared that you were an All-American? That's bullshit. I was like, oh my gosh. And everybody, like I'm sitting like all the offensive linemen on both sides of me in the meeting room, and everybody turns around and starts laughing, man. I was like, I sunk down in my chair. I was like, I don't know if I can play here, man. I don't know if I can do this. But I realized that was just Coach Spurrier, and that's what he did to everybody. So, yeah, that was a humbling moment in my Gator football career.
Yeah, no. And then very next play, I'm laughing, right? I'm one of the linemen laughing and giggling in my seat, and I'm sitting next to Shannon. And then the very next play comes up, and I'm like, oh, shoot. And it was a draw play to Rob Gillespie, Rob G. And I just remembered, because the previous play, Shannon is just like locked in. He's just like right here, just not. And I'm sitting, I'm like, fan. Shannon's not doing anything. He's just standing straight. I'm like, because he's staring at the D tackle. The D tackle's now shaded on the nose. But I'm like, but we have a DN and an outside backer on the line of scrimmage. I'm like, fan. And Shannon's just not giving anything. So I'm like, okay, well, you know what? I'm going to have to do this on my own. I'm like, all right, I'm going to set out here, try and pick the intersection point. I'm going to put both my hands out. And I'm going to see if a touch cloth. Play calls. I snap. I take my set. I do this and fall forward and stumble forward. Both the guys go unabated to the backfield. They hit Rob G for a safety in the backfield. And I'm like, oh my God. And Coach Spurrier comes to that film and he goes, oh, wait a second. We got something here. Hey, Maxie. Hey. You're big enough to block two some bitches. You can't even hit one. That's why we got hit in the backfield. And I'm just like, and then now I got the green face next to Shannon. We're both sitting all the way down in our chair. And Coach Spurrier turns the lights off. The whole room is just laughing at both their freshman offensive linemen for making two boneheaded mistakes back to back. But we recovered. We rebounded, Shannon. We rebounded after that. And we started to kick butt. We double teamed that D tackle to all hell on one play.
Yeah, we had to make up for what we did because, like I said, when film is coming, there's going to be something bad. Like unless you're grading out 100%, which I don't think any player or offensive lineman or any player that I've seen in history grade out 100%. There was going to be a point in time that you were going to get talked about in film room, and boy. Pat, that was the lowest of low because, and technically, Max, I do apologize because that was my fault. I should have blocked out, but I was shook on the last play. I was like, the guy hit the guy. I know I'm going to see that film room. We were up by 30 points at that point, but it didn't really matter.
No, it didn't because it was our first shot.
Let me ask you, Max, are you surprised that Shannon is a Sonny's pitmaster and, of course, does a great job there and did so much great work during the pandemic, taking food to people, and I was one of them. I really appreciated it from Sonny's. Was he cooking for you when you were in college? Was he grilling up some food then?
I mean, it was a lot tougher for us to cook when that Burger King sat right across the street and they had 99-cent Whoppers, and we would pile up in the two-door Ford Explorer Sport. And we would pass our money forward, and we had. So I was on the fourth floor with Carlos Perez in 95, at Hall 95, and Shannon was on the second floor, and I just remember his roommate was Ernest and Gus, and every time we talked about going to Burger King, Ernest would pop his head in. And do you remember, Shannon, that one time we were in the drive-thru and Ernest had the nerve to order 3 Whoppers and ask for a Diet Coke with him to wash it down because he was watching calories?
So, Pat, we were like literally, this was summer, like we had all just gotten there and literally, Ernest was, we had 4 guys to kind of a suite. We shared a bathroom and Ernest Smith, who came out of Jacksonville, he was part of the Berlin Wall, which we were part of, but he never stayed around. But him and Gus Scott were our suite mates. And Ernest always wanted to ride with us when it came to food. And we said, okay. And this was during conditioning where Rob Glass, the strength and conditioning coach at that point in time, was the guy, like you were kind of legitimately afraid of him because he was going to hurt you the next day. So I remember saying, okay, well, let's go to Burger King because, where we were at, we didn't have like the cooking, like we had a community kitchen, but, we didn't always go get groceries. We went to Burger King. So we're riding in the car and I'm at the drive-thru and I'm sitting there. I'm like, okay, what does everybody want? So we all order like regular meals. We order, regular stuff. Ernest is looking at the menu, staring at it for about like 2 minutes. And Ernest is like maybe 6'3" to 330 pounds. So knowing we have conditioning and stuff the next day, Ernest looks at the menu and says, hey, let me get 4 Whoppers. I'm driving and I look over at Ernest. I'm just start laughing and I'm like, are you serious? He's like, yeah, let me get 4 Whoppers. I was like, okay, what do you want to drink? And he says, well, I don't think Coach Glass wants us eating all that fattening stuff, so let me get a Diet Coke too. I'm like, I look at Max and we're like, what? So you think the Diet Coke is going to offset the 4 Whoppers that you're going to get? At any one given time, man, it was like all these stories that we have about all these guys. And I think that was the coolest thing about being at Florida because, sometimes you look back and, even my progression now, I'm glad because, Sonny started in Gainesville in 1968. And then a lot of times Max and myself and my brother, we used to go up to the Sonny's on Archer Road and, frequent there a lot because we live right around the corner. I look back at it, you look back at the decisions you made, you say, hey man, should I have gone to Florida? For Max and I both, like Coach Spurrier left in the middle of our tenure. So it was we were like those halfway in between where a new coach comes in. But, it was a great decision for both of us to kind of, to build what we did because we were 2 of the last ones around. I mean, there was a handful, we had one recruiting class in 2020. We had the number 1 recruiting class in the nation and, really only a couple of guys really stayed around. A lot of those guys, about half that class is gone. So, for my career progression, for Max, where he was at, I mean, Florida was a great stepping stone for him to get to the NFL. Obviously, he's had a great career and then, went on to, broadcasting, which I naturally thought he was going to do. It was just a good move for us to be there. It was great because we made a lot of friends, a lot of people who I even still communicate with now, which is awesome. So it was just, Florida was a great time back then. And it was a great time for both of us.
Yeah. And when I look at it, I mean, it made sense, right? Like I talked about Shannon's personality, it made sense that he would be in a position to serve others because he has such a caring spirit. He always checked in on guys, made sure everybody was good, even when we played. And so to see him now, would I have thought he would have been a pit master? Absolutely not. Because Shannon just had that personality. Well, you just knew whatever he was going to do, he was going to be great at it. And so because he was so personable, he was nice to everyone, and he always gave everybody a chance. So you just knew he had that spirit in him. So once Shannon did make a decision on what his career was going to be, I knew he was going to be excellent at it. And to see him shining in this role, I mean, because let's face it, whoever thinks about the pit master when you go to a restaurant more often than not, right? It was like, hey, these ribs were really good. This brisket was really good today. Hey, he put his foot in it. But Shannon has that personality where you're going to know who he is, and he's going to make it something that is personal. There's a story behind it, and it's going to make you even feel more better about your decision that day to get a rack of ribs. And they were made with care. The person that's doing it has the utmost knowledge, and they care about every single piece of meat that comes off of that smoker. And it's more so than just the meat happens to be the conduit, right? But it's the care, the thought, and the delivery and the emotion that goes behind it. And that's what you can feel. And that's one of the things, when the Florida-Georgia game happened last year, one of my teammates from Pittsburgh, Willie Colon, was down there with Barstool, and they were doing a whole Florida-Georgia thing. And I reached out to Shannon. I'm like, Shannon, hey, listen, you got to go find Willie because He's looking for food. I don't know what you're doing down there. I know you're doing something catering. And because, I felt that connection, like to try and link those two guys, because I knew that, Willie loves food and cares about food, but I knew Shannon is that shepherd of excellent food. So I was like, you got to find him somehow in some way. But that's the first thought that came in my mind. I'm like, Shannon is the perfect person to be, quote unquote, the sommelier of sauce and of smoke.
Is that like French? Like you speaking French there? What is
I did. I threw a little French in there, There's a compliment, though. Even though we can't speak the language, it sounds cool.
Yeah, it does. I can't even spell it, so you might have to send that over to me. I don't.
All right, guys, we appreciate your time so much. Appreciate you getting up, Max. And the bad part for Max now is he didn't have any Sunnies out there, right? So he's not going to be able to go get some barbecue, but I can. So when I'm done here, I'm going to go to Sunny's as I always do.
Good move, Pat. That's smart.
Enjoy some barbecue. But hey, thanks so much, guys. You were so much fun to cover, and it's great to have you both on. That's a lot of beef on that screen right there. I can tell you that.
There is. And we're not talking about the brisket, so.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
No.
Thank you, Pat.
Right,
appreciate it, buddy.
Thanks, Pat.
Appreciate
it.
Titan MRI, North Central Florida's premier independent diagnostic testing MRI facility. At Titan MRI, we're focused on you, the patient, having a great customer experience. Our MRI equipment is modern and 75% quieter than any unit in its class. And our MRI unit has one of the largest openings of any of the newer high-strength MRI units, which allows comfortable scanning for potential claustrophobic and larger patients. At Titan MRI, we look forward to serving you.
Thanks so much to our title sponsors, ABC Fine Wine and Spirits and Titan MRI, and to our pick sponsor, Leonardo's of Millhopper. You can find us live on Facebook and YouTube, or listen at your leisure on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts, or wherever you find all your favorite podcasts. I'm excited to continue this podcast and to have your company on board as a sponsor. If you're interested in being part of the show, email me at patrickdooley54@gmail.com or give me a call, 352-317-3444. You can get your favorite alcoholic brands from ABC Fine Wine and Spirits delivered right to your door. ABC Delivers is available in Tampa, Orlando, Jacksonville, and all of the Southeast Florida. Earn ABC points for coupons and free bottles through abcdelivers.com. It's powered by FedEx Same Day City, and you're going to love the price. Free with a $50 purchase for the first 7 miles. So wine, spirits, beer, and everything you need to celebrate. Get it delivered. Shop abcdelivers.com. All right, it is truly a great honor to bring in Laura Rutledge, one of my favorite people in the world. And we've had a lot of situations where we've been in a lot of the same places, but now she's everywhere. So if you, like I said earlier, if you don't know Laura Rutledge, then your TV is broken. So you're going to have to go get a new TV. So go get a new TV and bring them out. How are you doing? I mean, I don't know how you have time for this podcast because you have so much going on in your life.
Well, I have time because it's you, Pat, but I'm doing great. Just excited to kind of be in a situation where I'm getting to talk about football every day. I mean, obviously, I miss college football when it's not college football season, but being able to do an NFL show that really the NFL season is year round. So it kind of gives me a chance to talk about it all the time. And the cool thing right now, as we're getting into, as we're entering into the NFL off season, we're talking more draft stuff, which gives me a chance to brag on the Gators all the time. It was actually hilarious. Yesterday we had Todd McShay on the show, and he was talking about Kyle Pitts and, some of the great prospects that Florida has. And I had to throw in a little go Gators to him because I couldn't help myself.
Well, that's good to hear. And I'm sure they had good things to say about Kyle Pitts as well. I mean, I would think for you, you've got to compartmentalize. I mean, I've learned that in my retirement, that, okay, this show goes here and this stuff for this story goes here. You've got, the college football one, the NFL one, the baby formula one, the shoots that you have to do for commercials and stuff. It's got to stay awfully busy for you.
Yeah, I always feel like I'm this close to just being crazy, and I probably am crazy if you ask anybody that really knows me well. But truly, I think you're right. Just kind of trying to keep things in different categories, and I think one thing that I've learned, just over my relatively short career, has been just trying to not be too hard on yourself. As you're trying to manage everything, and just being patient with yourself and being forgiving of yourself. I think that's applicable to a lot of people in life and just in general, whether you have a lot going on or you don't have as much going on. I think we're all kind of too hard on ourselves and sometimes let the criticism get to us. So I just try to take it one step at a time. And sometimes that means, I've got like a poop diaper hanging off the side of something, and I'm trying to, get on the phone, and I'm trying to get ready for the show. I mean, just whatever it may be, it's always an adventure.
When they approached you about NFL Live, did you say, does that mean I have to give up college football? Because you're still able to dabble in that. And I think that kind of scratches that itch for you.
Yeah, that's so well said. It was interesting when they called me about NFL Live. Actually, one of the first things out of Stephanie Drewley's mouth, who she was the one who called me, and she's a wonderful leader at ESPN. She called and she said, all right, I'm just going to go ahead and say, don't worry, you'll still host SEC Nation. You'll still be in the college football world, because she knew how much college football means to me and how important, covering the SEC is to me. And I think that's something that, I'm really grateful for. Every step along the way in my career, I've still had a chance to do that. And I think that they know how much that matters to me. And so I hope that I can continue to keep that component no matter what. And the great thing too, hoping that I get to stay in this job as long as possible. The SEC and ESPN are about to enter into this big deal together, in a partnership together, whenever that deal is up with CBS. So we're talking, 3-4 years. And that's something that I'm really excited about and hope that I can be a part of too at that point, even with the NFL job that I have now.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing, Laura. I would think that everybody at ESPN is they're already in the plan-making stages for 3 years from now when the CBS, the contract goes over to ESPN. And I think a lot of us grew very comfortable with CBS and the game of the week and 3:30 every Saturday. And I think we don't want to see the pageantry of that game get lost.
Yeah, it's a great way to put that. And I think that's something that I know I can't give away too much, but I know that a lot of people already have their brains on that and trying to maintain that pageantry. Even talking about the iconic music that we all think of, right? That might stick around. I don't want to break news here necessarily, but there are a lot of things that conversations that are being had right now that I know are trying as hard as we can to not only continue that pageantry, but accentuate it. And I think the cool thing, just as a fan of college football, but a fan of the SEC especially, is that we're talking about now where the entire college football day will be from wherever that game is most likely. You think about game day being able to be there. It's literally all the way through. And just the exposure for the student athletes in the Southeastern Conference with an even larger platform with the components of ESPN, ABC, and Disney is really, really cool. So I'm excited for everybody involved in it, but especially excited for the student athletes that deserve that platform so much.
Doing the NFL now too, obviously there are a lot of people who believe they know everything, more in the NFL, I think, than college. We know we don't know anything, but the game to me has changed in this way. And then I think the NFL has almost pulled away from college football in terms of how good you have to be great. You can't just be good and play in the NFL anymore. And I'm amazed when I watch an NFL game, I'm seeing, that SEC type speed all over the place every day.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's a good point. I think too, the rookies that are coming in and the contributions they're able to make so early on because of the way that the game and offenses especially have changed a little bit and evolved and become a little bit more speed and space, a little bit more of what we've kind of seen at the college level for the last few years. And that transition has been, I think, really exciting. I love offense and defense. I'm not somebody that's going to sit here and say, oh, all I want is high scoring games. Some of my favorite games that I've ever seen have been actually low scoring defensive battles, but still the offense is fun. And I thought it was interesting at the Super Bowl, Roger Goodell, the NFL commissioner's press conference, he brought up the point that in such a wild year and a difficult year for so many people, the NFL, not only got through the season, right, but they were playing at the highest level in a lot of ways that they've ever played at. And so it really is. It continues to get better. And I think it's also a reflection on college football and specifically the SEC, because so many of these players are coming from the SEC and coming in prepared to play at that high level.
Yeah, the SEC, we're not counting last year in terms of scoring. That was ridiculous. We don't want those 48, 43 games anymore. We got to get them down a little bit. There's no question about it. But it is different in college and different in pros, and that's why one of the questions, you being somebody from the state of Florida, I'm curious what your thought is, and somebody who covered Urban Meyer and Jacksonville and that marriage. That they're still making out on the doorstep. I mean, you can't get them off the doorstep. The city of Jacksonville and Urban Meyer. It's almost too much.
Oh man, I tell you what. Yeah, I mean, listen. Credit to the Jaguars for making that hire. Urban Meyer is a splash hire, no matter where you're trying to hire him. I actually wrote a piece for ESPN that's going to be airing soon, but I had a line in the piece where I thought college football coaches breathed a sigh of relief knowing that he wasn't coming back to college. And then the NFL guys said, well, wait a second, even though he's not a proven commodity in the NFL, he still has that cachet. And no matter where he's gone, he's won. And I just think that reputation precedes itself. And I also think from Urban's perspective, it's really interesting because he doesn't have to do this. Like, he's already proven himself at so many different stops. He's been great on TV, all of that. But he's hungry for this, right? He wants to see, can I, and maybe it's an ego thing a little bit, but I think it's just kind of who he is. And you know this well in covering him also. He wants to see if he can do it. And I think he can. I think the difficulty is, it's just not going to be as instant success as you would see in college. He can't go out and recruit the best players. He's got to deal with, the way that the structure of the NFL works and how they're going to draft him. Obviously, he's going to get the best player this year because he'll get Trevor Lawrence, which is a big reason why he went to Jacksonville in the first place. Yeah. But he's not, Pat, going to be able to go out and just always say, all right, year after year, I'm bringing in the top players, because that's just not how the NFL works. So I think it's going to be intriguing to see how patient he can be, and I guess how patient Jacksonville can be, but I think it's less about that and more about his own patience and maybe not winning all the time. It's going to be a rebuild. It's going to be difficult. I think it will take a few years, and for Urban, it usually doesn't take a few years. So that's going to be something to watch, I think.
Hey, by the way, I wanted to know, I never saw the final tally on Baby Reese's record on picking games.
It's you know what? She's actually starting to scare me in both college. And then, of course, she picked the Super Bowl. She picked the Bucks. So she is 12-2 all time in her picks. I mean, and here's the thing. Like, everyone's like, oh, you guys are somehow doctoring the picks. No, we just let her loose. She does that. Her record is like significantly better than mine. So whatever she knows, I need some sort of information on. And I knew with the Super Bowl pick, she picked the Bucks. I knew I should change my pick to the Bucks. I had picked the Chiefs. I thought, you know what? I'm going to stick with it, whatever. And I just had a feeling I knew she was going to be right. It's very weird. I don't know what's going on with her, but everyone keeps saying, and it's funny. I get all these tweets where people are like, oh yeah, I place my bets on whatever she's doing and I've won all this money. I'm thinking, why am I not doing that? I should be making some money off this kid, but yeah, she's unbelievable with those. It's been hilarious.
The next thing you know, she'll be in Vegas going down the escalator with that Rain Man suit on.
Yeah. Right. I would be surprised.
Yeah, I can see that happen. Before we let you go, I know one of the biggest topics on your show has been since we saw the game, the Super Bowl, is how we never saw this coming. We did not see the blowout coming, not with Tampa Bay. and also how great they did defensively. But I know another subject is we were hoping a lot of people were hoping to see a 6-2, 6 Super Bowls for Brady, 2 for Mahomes, and now we had a competition, and now it's 7-1, and it's over. I'm calling it. I'm throwing the towel in. He's not going to get to 7, and certainly not to 8.
Yeah, I mean, it's wild to think what Brady's done. I think that as much as we tried to put that in context, it's hard to really even do it because it's never been done before. I mean, this guy goes and wins 6 Super Bowls with the Patriots and then says, you know what, I'm done playing there, structured his deal so that he could leave, finds a team that, you know, people knew that the Buccaneers offense was good. No one really talked about their defense last year. Jameis Winston was the story because he turned the football over too much. He goes there and he says, you know what, this team is going to work for me. I'm going to bring Rob Gronkowski with me, who I don't even care if Gronk does anything in the regular season. It's all about the postseason. And sure enough, that pays off. Antonio Brown runs a great route that ends up being a touchdown. I mean, all of these steps along the way that Brady seemingly calculated almost like it wasn't even a big deal. It's just shocking to me. And listen, I still think, I mean, Patrick Mahomes is going to be one of the greatest of all time. I firmly believe that. This was a game where, you know, the Chiefs were outcoached. The O-line was a big part of this. I think the Chiefs, and deservedly so, they're already a favorite for next year's Super Bowl because their O-line will be back and they'll be better, you know, than they were in that game. They picked a pretty bad day to play their worst game in 3 years. But when you think about how young Mahomes is, listen, he's not going to be Brady, but I think he can still get close. I wouldn't be shocked if Mahomes ends up winning maybe 4 or 5 Super Bowls. And they can do it in the next few years because they're set up really well with the guys that they have on their team. But yeah, Brady's unbelievable and he's coming back again. And it's like, you know what? Watch him win another. I mean, I would not be shocked if that happened.
Yeah, Mahomes would be like Phil Mickelson, you know, it went 4 or 5, you know, not up there in the rarefied air of it by any chance. But hey, Laura, always great talking to you. We appreciate all the work you do on the SEC Nation, of course, NFL Live. And do you have any writing you wanted to plug? You mentioned that you're writing some stuff. Are you trying to take my jobs over?
No. Oh my goodness. I would never. No, I write a lot of feature pieces for ESPN that they turn into things that'll be on SportsCenter. And sometimes we have them on NFL Live. Just, you know, I love to write. So it's kind of been cool that they'll let me do that every once in a while if I get an idea. Or sometimes they'll come to me and say, hey, we want a piece. They came to me and said they wanted a piece on Urban Meyer in Jacksonville. So I wrote them a little something. And yeah, I mean, who knows when they're going to air, but don't worry about those. I'm not.
No, I'm going to critique them. I'm going to critique him the way Buddy Davis used to critique me at Florida. He would leave you a tape and you had to listen to it. And I took his class, and the first tape I listened to, I plug it in, you know, go to the library, and he goes, in every class, there's someone who doesn't get it. In our class, that's you. And I hit stop. I go, I'm dropping this class. I got to take it. Those are the days. Days.
Joke's on him, I think, to be totally honest.
Laura, thanks for joining us. It was great stuff as always. And we'll see you down the road. Hopefully we'll see you soon because I'd like to see, you know, people.
That'd be great.
Yes.
That would be awesome. I fingers crossed that can happen soon, but I appreciate you so much. Thanks for having me.
We'll see you, Laura. Thanks a lot.